afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Washington Brief, sponsored by the Washington Times Foundation. It's my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Michael Jenkins, president of the Washington Times Foundation, which sponsors this broadcast. He's also chairman of the Washington Times Holdings, the LLC that owns the Times news organization, and has led a number of well-received fact-finding trips to Korea and Japan that have met with the legislative, executive, intel, and military leadership of those countries. As president of the nonprofit NGO, the Universal Peace Federation International, Dr. Jenkins has decades-long experience conducting peace initiatives all over the world, particularly in Northeast Asia and the Middle East. Dr. Jenkins, welcome.
Thank you, Larry, and welcome to our viewing audience throughout America and throughout the world. This is a most crucial time with the invasion of Ukraine, and we're going to take a look at Northeast Asia today, focused on North and South Korea, and how we can see the path forward with the experts that are assembled here. Our moderator today is Ambassador Christopher Hill. Ambassador Christopher Hill is the 2021 Charles W. Ball Professor of the Practice of Diplomacy in Columbia University School of International Public Affairs. Ambassador Hill is a former career diplomat, a four-time ambassador appointed by three different presidents, both Republicans and Democrats, and was the U.S. ambassador to Macedonia, to Poland, Korea, and Iraq. Prior to his posting in Iraq, Chris served as Assistant Secretary of State for East Asian and Public Affairs for 5 years, during which he also headed the U.S. delegation to the six-party talks on North Korean nuclear issue. Our panel today is Ambassador Joseph DeTrani. Ambassador DeTrani was the former special envoy for negotiations with North Korea and the director of the National Counterproliferation Center. He was an associate director of national intelligence and mission manager for North Korea. He's a veteran of the CIA, currently a professor at Missouri State University's Graduate Department on Defense and Strategic Studies. Also on our panel is the renowned Professor Alexandre Mansourov. Professor Mansourov is an adjunct professor of security studies at the Edmund A. Walsh School of Foreign Service at Georgetown University in Washington. He's also an adjunct professor at the Korean Studies for the School of Advanced and International Studies at Johns Hopkins University. He's one of the few people in the United States who holds advanced degrees from the Moscow State University of International Relations, Columbia University in New York, and Kim Il-sung University in Pyongyang. He's fluent in Korean and Russian languages and is internationally recognized as one of the foremost experts on the Korean Peninsula. We're very honored to present to you our special guest today, General Walter Skip Sharp. General Sharp was born while his father was fighting in the Korean War. He graduated from West Point in 1974. General Sharp commanded the United Nations Command, Republic of Korea, United States Combined Forces Command, and the United States Forces Korea from 2008 to 2011. He also commanded troops in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm, upheld democracy in Haiti and the multinational division of the NATO-led stabilization force in Bosnia. General Sharp is the chairman of the board of directors for the Military Officers Association, is a director on the board of the Korean Society, and former chairman and president, and now special advisor to the Korea Defense Veterans Association. He also consults for and is on the boards of several U.S. companies involved with Northeast Asia. He was serving as commander of the UNC during the time when the Cheonan was sunk, as well as Yeonpyeong Island was also attacked. At this time, I'd like to present our moderator, Ambassador Christopher Hill. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much, Dr. Jenkins. And let me tell you, it is once again a great pleasure to be here in the Washington Brief. We're particularly honored today to have General Skip Sharp join us, who really has seen a lot in this post-Cold War era. He was in charge of peacekeeping forces in Bosnia. He also was very much a part of a warfighting effort in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. Took part in troop deployments in Haiti, another very tough mission. And then, of course, and the reason he's here today, he served as the Commander-in-Chief of Forces Korea. I think today we will, of course, talk about Korea, understanding that we live in, how to put it, interesting times. We have a full-fledged war going on, the sort of war we haven't seen in quite some time. But I think General Sharp will be able to talk to us about the command relationships, the rather complex command relationships that go on in Korea, and have really helped maintain the peace on the Korean Peninsula. If, as someone who's practiced a lot of diplomacy, I can tell you there's no more diplomacy than in managing these kinds of command relationships with close allies. And we've got no ally better than the Republic of Korea. And we send our best generals to deal with this. And so we're our country was very privileged to have been able to send Skip Sharp to Korea. And we at this program are very privileged to have him here to talk about how some of those command relationships have worked, and maybe to coax from him some thoughts as well about where that will be going in the future and how it will continue to maintain peace in the Korean Peninsula. So with those kind of introductory comments, I'm going to turn it over to General Sharp. Our usual format is he frankly talks as long as he needs to talk, and then Joe DeTrani and Sasha Mansourov and I will join in. We'll have a little discussion, and before you know it, the hour is up. It often goes way too fast, and I'm sure it will in this case to have this very complex and absolutely vital subject covered. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to General Sharp, and General, take it away.
Great, thanks, Chris. And first, thanks to the Washington Foundation, the Washington Times Foundation, for hosting this today and allowing me to discuss Korea, country that I believe is our strongest ally anywhere in the world. And what I've been asked to do is talk a little bit about the command and control, the uniqueness of how it is set up in Korea now. I will also talk a little bit about some examples of how that command and control structure was used in 2010 during the sinking of the Cheonan and the attack on the island by Baipido, and then talk very briefly about where it's going in the future with transitioning wartime operational control to the Republic of the Korea. Being an Army officer and a Joint Staff guy, I've got to have slides. So I'm going to put up a couple slides to be able to help myself walk through this. And if somebody can just confirm my slides are up.
They're good?
Yep, they're good.
Okay, great. So what I would like to do is to first off talk about the 4 commands that are in Korea. These are the 4 top commands that are there today and have been there for a long time. So first off, if you look in the bottom left-hand corner, United Nations Command. United Nations Command was established right after the beginning of the Korean War on 7 July 1950 as a result of UN Security Council resolutions 82, 83, and 84. It was the command that controlled all of the forces from the United States, the Republic of Korea, and other sending states during the Korean War. And then it continued to command the U.S. forces and Republic of Korea forces until 1978. During that time period, from the end of the Korean War to 1978, again, its responsibility was to command and control forces, to deter North Korea, but mainly also to make sure that the Armistice, which was agreed to in 1953, was abided by, and any violations of that Armistice were investigated and were deterred. That command is still in command today. It still has a command there today. It has a different purpose than did during the war or up until 1978. Its purpose today is really armistice maintenance, and where there are incidents which break the armistice, and I'll talk about 2 of those today, It conducts investigation and reports to the United Nations. These are the units, the countries that are still in the United Nations command today. There are 17 sending states, as they are known, plus the Republic of Korea, that have troops, small numbers in some cases, but I think this shows really the resilience and the importance of this command, in that these countries still have staff officers there. They participate in exercises, and they are prepared to facilitate, if needed, bringing troops in from these different countries in case we go to war. So that's the first command, United Nations Command. The second command I'd like to talk about is Combined Forces Command, the green box in the middle. It was established in 1978. It is a bilateral command between the Republic of Korea and the United States. And starting in 1978 up until 1994, it commanded all U.S. and Republic of Korea forces to deter North Korea and to respond to any provocations. It is a command, again, that is also in place today. The command's responsibilities are really to maintain war plans, to conduct exercises, to validate the readiness of the command. And then today, if we went to war, wartime operational control of all forces of the Republic of Korea and the United States would come under a Combined Forces Command. But I think it's important to note that this command, again, commanded, even during Armistice, Republic of Korea forces from 1978 to 1994. So that brings us to the third command that I'd like to talk about, which is the ROK Joint Chiefs of Staff, the white box on the top. The ROK Joint Chiefs of Staff is a joint staff. It's headed by the chairman, the Republic of Korea chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. And starting in 1994, it received operational control of Republic of Korea forces and the day-to-day responsibility to deter North Korea and defend against any provocations and attack. So right now, the ROK chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff commands all ROK forces. They are the ones that are defending the Republic of Korea. Land, sea, air, and cyber are defending the Republic of Korea against any North Korea provocations. It has the authority on its own, as any nation does, to act in self-defense. And it remains the command of Republic of Korea forces up until the point where the crisis is bad enough that both the Republic of Korea and the U.S. president say it's time to pass command to Combined Forces Command. So the current chain of command for day-to-day responses to any provocation in North Korea for Republic of Korea forces is directly from the President of the Republic of Korea through their Minister of Defense, through their Joint Chiefs of Staff to field commanders. So the Republic of Korea chairman is a commander that does command forces for the Republic of Korea. And then the fourth command that I'd like to talk about is United States Forces Korea. It is a command that commands the U.S. forces. Its responsibility is, as it says on the slide, to man, train, and equip those U.S. forces and to help support Combined Forces Command and United Nations Command. It really is not a warfighting headquarters. The warfighting headquarters, if we went to war, would be Combined Forces Command today. So those are the four commands. Again, the point that I'm trying to make on this is the different commands that are there. But in peacetime, in Armistice, that we are on a day-to-day basis, it's really the ROK chairman and the ROK JCS that's doing the defense of Korea, and Combined Forces Command is doing the preparation in case we go to war and both presidents decide it's time to put all forces under Combined Forces Command. I think it's unique to note that the four-star commander that's there, General Camera at this time, and prior to him, the different U.S. commanders are triple-hatted. They command all of the commands that are shown in the bottom three boxes: United Nations Command, Combined Forces Command, and U.S. Forces Korea. And then the final point I'll make on this slide is in the middle box, again, Combined Forces Command has a U.S. four-star commander. The deputy commander, whose office is literally right next door to the U.S. commander, is the Republic of Korea four-star. All of the primary staff are bilateral, they're combined staff. So, for example, the J2, the intelligence officer, the 2-star is a Republic of Korea officer, the 1-star is a U.S. officer. The J3, the operations officer, the 2-star is a U.S. 2-star, and the 1-star deputy for operations is the Republic of Korea. So that's how it is set up today. I just need to briefly talk about how Combined Forces Command gets their orders and operational guidance. Combined Forces Command works for and through the Republic of Korea chairman and the U.S. chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. So orders and missions and guidance comes down bilaterally from the presidents of the two countries through the Minister of Defense and the Secretary of Defense to a meeting which occurs at least annually and a lot more often in times of crisis, called the Securities Consultative Meeting. That guidance and orders that comes from both presidents goes through that committee, again, chaired by our minister or our secretary and the Republic of Korea minister. It then goes to a military committee meeting that's chaired by both chairmen from the Republic of Korea and the United States. And then those orders and guidance are passed to the commander of Combined Forces Command. So this is the command structure. It is bilateral. Everything that happens within Combined Forces Command goes through this structure. And let me give you just one quick example of that. During the time I was commander there, we made some revisions to some war plans. Those revisions, I, as the Combined Forces Commander, had to take and get approved by both the Republic of Korea chairman and the U.S. chairman, and then the Republic of Korea Minister of Defense and the U.S. Secretary of Defense. So I briefed them up through both of those change commands. They were both that the changes then to the operations plan were agreed to and approved at a security consultative meeting in 2010. So that's the way that this command works. It gets orders not only in Armistice, but it would work exactly the same way in wartime when Combined Forces Command becomes the commander. So that is the structure that's there. I'd like to take a couple minutes now and just give a couple real world examples of how this command and control process worked in 2010 during the two provocations in 2010. And they are very different. So March 26th, North Korea sunk the South Korean ship, the Cheonan, and killed 46 sailors. There was a lot of questions immediately following that sinking. Who did this? How did it happen? Was it a landmine? Was it a sea mine that had broken loose? Was it a torpedo? And it took a while to be able to conclusively prove that North Korea had sunk the Cheonan. So what happened from a command and control perspective? Well, again, remember the Republic of Korea is responsible for the day-to-day defense. So the ROK chairman strengthened the forces in the Northwest Islands. He increased ISR and looking into North Korea, see if there's anything else that's going to happen. But it was very clear at the time that this was a one-time incident that was not going to escalate very quickly. So the United Nations Command, what we basically did is we conducted an investigation along with a multinational command that was put together, or multinational investigation that was put together by the Republic of Korea. In Combined Forces Command and U.S. Forces Korea, we increased our intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. But again, we never thought we were getting close to going to war. We never really even put into place a strong crisis action procedure within Combined Forces Command. Part of that was because of just the delay in determining who did it and our ability to be able to see that North Korea really was not doing anything else at the time other than denying that they had done anything to sink this ship. Very different in November of 2010, where on the 23rd of November, the Republic of Korea artillery was conducting a monthly artillery exercise south of the northern limit line. During that day, North Korea shelled the Republic of Korea island of Yeonpyeong with about 150 rounds. South Korea, under their own authority and own responsibility in the commands of the Republic of Korea chairman, returned artillery fire towards North Korea. The artillery fire that came from North Korea onto the island killed 4 South Koreans, and 68 were injured. The immediate aftermath was, of course, the United Nations started an investigation to report to the United Nations. And let me drop down to the bottom part of the block, because this is where some of the real differences occurred, and it shows how the command and control works in a situation of crisis like this. So immediately following the first artillery attacks, the ROK chairman not only responded with artillery fire, but put all his forces on full alert. They returned artillery to fire. They deployed F-15Ks in the air to be prepared to fire in case the artillery continued or it escalated into the future. I, as the commander of Combined Forces Command, we put into place our crisis action procedures, which started really looking at not only, what is North Korea doing besides this? Are there any other indicators and warnings that we have that we are about ready to go to war or that this could escalate very quickly? We went into escalation planning mode to include, notifying both. I, as commander of CFC, kept the U.S. chairman and the ROK chairman informed on what Combined Forces Command were doing, where forces were positioned, how long it would take to get forces to move if this were to be escalated. We really started going through those crisis action procedures and escalation planning. It became apparent fairly soon thereafter that this was not going to escalate. There were really no signs that North Korea was getting ready to go to war as we watched the other forces and other things that North Korea would have to do if they were getting ready to go to war, and did not see any of those signs. So the immediate day after the artillery attack, things became then in investigating it and seeing where this could go into the future. The South Koreans, rightfully so, wanted to go back and demonstrate that they had the right to do artillery training south of the northern limit line. And they pushed to be able to do that. And by the end of December, towards the end of December, the next exercise, which is in the same location as the one that was on the 23rd of November, occurred. Well, running up to that exercise, Combined Forces Command had a huge role again, because there was a lot of concern that when South Korea fired basically the same artillery exercise that it did in November, it could spark off quick escalation again. So to show deterrence, we continued to plan, we continued to posture forces, we continue to work very closely with the Republic of Korea as a Combined Forces Command. But remember, neither president put Combined Forces Command in charge during that period. So if there had been escalation, if there had been something that happened during that period, South Korea would still be responsible for that defense. And then if things started to escalate very quickly, both presidents were prepared to put Combined Forces Command in charge and move all forces under the operational control of Combined Forces Command. But thankfully, that did not happen. The artillery exercise went off, and the situation de-escalated. So that's 2 examples of how these structures work. One more slide to quickly go through. So where are we going in the future? Operational control. There's been discussion for many years about passing wartime operational control back to the Republic of Korea, So what does that really mean? Really, the only change that would occur from all of the things that I briefed before, to include the slides that showed the process of how Combined Forces Command gets its orders and guidance. That does not change. The only thing that would change is the Republic of Korea would have the 4-star commander, and the U.S. would have a 4-star deputy commander. That's it. That is the only changes that would take place. That 4-star Republic of Korea commander would have the responsibility to reporting to both chairmen, both the U.S. and the Republic of Korea, both the Minister of Defense and the Secretary of Defense, and following that chain of command. So where are we now in this process? So it has been established that there are 3 conditions that have to take place for wartime operational control to pass to the Republic of Korea. that the Republic of Korea has to acquire certain capabilities, demonstrated that they have the ability to utilize them, and the strategic situation on the peninsula has to be the right time to do this transition to wartime operational control. The Republic of Korea continues and is doing to buy the capabilities and demonstrate the capabilities. We've had one exercise in 2019 for initial operating capability for the Republic of Korea. What we're hearing now is the full operational capability exercise will take place this summer and in the fall, which would mean the next step and the last step is when full mission capability is determined, and then we are ready to do wartime operational control transition, depending upon the strategic situation. So that is, again, a summary of where we've been, where we are now, and where we're going into the future. And let me just stop by saying it's a command and control structure that seems complicated when you look at it from the outside, I'm sure. But keep in mind, this structure has been in place, parts of it at least, and most of it, since the Korean War, and even in Combined Forces Command since the mid-70s. So it is one that is practiced, it's rehearsed multiple times throughout the year, and it really is a very functional combined command, one of a kind in the world, where truly on a day-to-day basis, Combined Forces Command has the Republic of Korea and U.S. Service members sitting side by side in staff positions, planning and exercising together on a day-to-day basis. So let me stop there, and I guess, Chris, turn it back over to you, and look forward to the questions and the discussion.
Well, thank you very much, General, and thank you for giving our listeners or viewers a glimpse of the OPCON transition issue. Now, I can't remember now how many years, but I know it's stretched on to more than a decade that we've been discussing this OPCON transition. And as you kind of lay out very clearly, there's maybe a little less to this than meets the eye. I wonder if you could comment on why the complexity in terms of the public's understanding of this issue, and what's likely really to, or I should say, when is there likely to be some real change in it? So
you're right. This has been discussed since really Secretary Rumsfeld back in the 2006, 2007 time period. I was honored to be on the joint staff at that time. But OPCON transition, as we first laid out, back up until about 2012, 2013, was a completely different structure than what it is right now. The structure back then would have taken this whole apparatus of command and torn it apart. Instead of having Combined Forces Command, what we were talking about back then was having a supporting relationship, where the Republic of Korea ROK chairman would be the supported commander, and the U.S. forces, which we call Korea Command during that time period, would be the supporting forces. And the structure would have a supported relationship rather than a combined relationship. There's lots of reasons that never got enacted. I think the main reason back during that time period was there was great concern during a conservative time period within South Korea that establishing a command and control relationship like that would lessen the U.S. commitment to South Korea and lessen the U.S. resolve, and potentially even lessen the number of forces that potentially the U.S. would have there. So it was agreed to by both presidents that was not going to go forward. And then about 2015 or so, we started a new command and control structure and a new OPCON transition, which is kind of where we are today. There's been some minor modifications of that over that time period between 2015 and today, but basically keeping the Combined Forces Command together has stayed in place. I do actually think we are close to making this happen. And, from my perspective, to have a Korean general in charge of the defense of the Republic of Korea with Korea having as strong as military as they have, with Korea being, the 8th or 9th or 10th richest country in the world, it is the right thing to do. The confusion today, which still exists in both, I think, both in the Republic of Korea and in the United States, is I've been very careful to say that when wartime OPCON transition happens, it's a Republic of Korea general in charge of Combined Forces Command. It's not the Republic of Korea. It's not the Republic of Korea military. That general, that Korean general, as I said earlier, works for both countries. Combined Forces Command works for both countries. That is, I think, the understanding that needs to be continually emphasized, not only that that's how it is, but that the structure is in place to make that work. To be honest, it will not be easy for that Korean general to have, as I was able to have, almost a day-to-day conversation with my Korean chairman. That's much more difficult for a Republic of Korea general to have with a U.S. chairman for time and distance and other reasons. So how to make this command stay binational, stay working for both countries will be the biggest challenge as we move forward, I think.
And I think also for our viewers, it's important to understand that over the years, these specific roles and missions have shifted within the force. That is, who handles counter battery issues of that kind. So there's been a lot of transition over the years within the force of how we maintain the defense of the ROK. And when this OPCON is sort of the icing on the cake, because a lot of other things have happened over the years.
Right, that's correct. I mean, if you look at the different field commands, whether it's a Naval Operational Command or the Ground Command, I mean, those commands have been led by the Republic of Korea and would be in wartime. Even we went today, they've been led by or would be led by Republic of Korea commands. Air forces and others are handled differently. But you make a great point, Chris, that a lot of the work underneath this has already happened over the years. And a lot of that has been able to happen because of the strength and the expertise and the professionalism and the capabilities of the Republic of Korea. I mean, people need to keep in mind this is a great military that was with us in Vietnam, is with us in Iraq and Afghanistan, and they're in peacekeeping missions all around the world. And they put a lot more money percentage-wise in the defense than any of our other allies.
I completely share your view. We do not have a better ally than this ally in terms of unity of purpose and level of effort. So it really is quite remarkable. I wonder if I can go to Ambassador DeTrani and for his comments and thoughts and maybe a question or two.
Thank you, Chris. General Sharp, thank you for the outstanding presentation. It's an honor being with you. I've worked with General Sharp for many years, and I can't say enough about this man. Thank you for being here with us today and sharing this. Given your briefing, which was very, very insightful, because to many people outside, it looks a bit complex, but when you presented it the way you did, it's very understandable. I will have a question for you, General Sharp, but let me just open by saying your presentation led me to pivot to something else, which is the tragedy we're seeing now in Ukraine and with the Russian invasion of Ukraine, and looking at some of the particulars there, obviously with the horrific casualties and so forth. But what struck me also was that Ukraine in 1994 had security assurances. The Budapest Memorandum of 1994, signed by Russia, the United States, and the United Kingdom, providing security assurances to the government of Ukraine, and in return for Ukraine dismantling all its nuclear weapons. And they returned over 1,900 nuclear warheads to the Russian Federation. They dismantled their facilities, etc. And I just can't help but thinking when you look at that, and then you look at what's going on now, that element of security assurances that were promised to the government of Ukraine at that time, and it brings me back to when I was a negotiator with North Korea, where I often heard from the North Korean counterparts, Mr. DeTrani, security assurances are a piece of paper. You could tear that up with new administrations, but when you move on to when you're talking about dismantling nuclear weapons and facilities, that takes years and decades and so forth. So I guess what I'm saying now is the whole question of nuclear denuclearization with North Korea has to be foremost on our minds. This is something we have to be even more energetic and more creative with, because if we don't succeed, and now given what we're seeing with Ukraine, you can understand why some of the leadership in North Korea may be saying, we don't want to move towards denuclearization because we're not sure about security assurances. And I remember what I would always tell my North Korean counterparts is the best security assurance is normalization of relations with the United States. Normalize with the Republic of Korea, normalize with the United States, have embassies in our respective capitals. And that's got to be the objective. So I guess what I want to say is when you look at the tragedy going on in Ukraine as we speak and as we sit here, the need for us to move the corporate we, the Republic of Korea, Japan, the United States, Russia, all countries, certainly China, to move towards denuclearization, and that should be utmost, because putting nuclear weapons on the table now when there possibly is conflict, that would be horrific, obviously. But looking at if North Korea were to retain nuclear weapons, if they were convinced that they can never give up nuclear weapons, because we hear many people saying in the United States and other places, North Korea will never give up its nuclear weapons, and maybe this what we're seeing in Ukraine would sort of fortify some of that belief that North Korea would not. Well, that would be tragic, because we could look at a nuclear, and we've been saying this for years, a nuclear arms race in the region, whether it's South Korea. A recent poll indicated more South Koreans now are talking about acquiring a nuclear weapons capability. We could see the same in Japan and so forth, and the whole question of proliferation and using nuclear weapons. So I guess what I'm saying now is we should be even more fortified and moving quicker with the goal of ultimate normalization of relations between countries, finding paths so that we can sit down and we can negotiate issues, differences, and so forth on that. So enough with my views on that, but I just felt I had to say that because security assurances obviously have to be important for any country. And we hear this often with the North Korea, and again, and we're seeing this now with the Ukraine and what's going on in Ukraine. And I remember one parliamentarian from Ukraine saying, if we had nuclear weapons, if we didn't dismantle those nuclear weapons, that would have been a major deterrence from what we're seeing now. So we should keep that foremost in our mind and move with even greater alacrity when we approach the North Korean nuclear issue. My question for you, General Sharp, and thank you for the great presentation. Could you give us a little sense of what North Korea has in a conventional military sense sitting on the other side of the DMZ, the Kaesong Heights and so forth, and their own command and control of their conventional military? We talk so much about the nuclear capabilities that North Korea has been pursuing all these years. What about their conventional capabilities? Are they, some say they're atrophying and they just have not maintained that capability. My sense is they have significant capabilities, certainly at the Kaesong Heights, but what is your view of what North Korea's conventional military capabilities are in regards to, if you will, the potential, God forbid it should ever happen, for conflict on the Korean Peninsula?
Well, thank you, Joe. Before I directly answer your question, I just want to touch on what your lead in there on the nuclear part, especially dealing with North Korea. I guess I personally believe that there's no amount of external pressure that is going to force Kim Jong-un to get rid of his nuclear weapons. This could be a whole nother show that we talk about here. I think the only way that that has any potential is to create both external pressure and internal pressure. And that will require information getting into North Korea. It will require discussions with China about how a reunified, denuclearized peninsula is in China's national interest, much more so than where it is right now. But that could be another whole program as to how we apply enough pressure, both externally and I think internally. David Maxwell, who many of us on here know, I think has got it exactly right as far as trying to figure out how to apply more internal pressure in order to be able to force the regime to change. But again, maybe for another show. To answer your question on North Korea's conventional capabilities, it is large. In some cases, it is aging, but you got to keep in mind that it has the largest artillery force in the world, many of them positioned within range of Seoul. So without having to maneuver whatsoever, that artillery force can rain hundreds of thousands of rounds of artillery onto Seoul, greater metropolitan area, without any adjustments of positions. That combined with a large special operating force, that combined with some long-range capabilities, I am very confident that the South Korean military and the U.S. and all those that would come to fight would be able to stop North Korea from taking Seoul. I'm confident in that. But I'm also, unfortunately, believe that if a full-scale attack like that took place, the number of casualties in a city of 28 million, which the greater Seoul metropolitan area is, would be horrific. There's just not, it is physically impossible to stop all of the artillery rounds that would be coming in very, very quickly to Seoul. So we'd be able to stop the attack. We, in the long run, would be able to push North Korea back. We'd be able to defeat North Korea. But the amount of folks that would be killed during that process, both South Korea and then U.S. and other forces that came to support, would be large. Look at some of the capabilities of North Korea that they've really been pushing lately. And they do have some pretty good capabilities that they've built up, especially in the ballistic missile and the missile capability. I think much more accuracy than they've had in the past, much more ability to be able to do some targeting. And then what they're doing with ballistic missiles right now in order to be able to make sure to verify in their mind and their capabilities that they can hit anywhere in the world with a ballistic missile with a nuclear warhead on it. That capability is expanding. The other capability that I think is expanding that is also very important is on the cyber side. I think they've proven that they have cyber capabilities that are very, very dangerous that I'm sure they would incorporate into any sort of provocation or war planning. So bottom line of that, a very large, very capable, and you don't have to, if you tell that large force, attack south until you can kill as many South Koreans as you can, it doesn't take a whole bunch of complex command and control and synchronization and all of that in order for that to happen. Again, I'm very confident we'd be able to stop them, but the number of casualties would be huge.
Thank you. That's excellent.
Sasha?
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. And thank you, General, for your amazing presentation. It was illuminating and very useful. Now, let me first make one point and then ask you a couple of questions of clarification. Now, we are, of course, 1 week away from the presidential elections in South Korea, and it's time to put together a scorecard on President Moon's policy towards North Korea, because it's linked, in my opinion, to the OPCON reform. And so, from where I stand, of course, there were some positive and negative developments with respect to North Korea in the past 5 years. Definitely, we had a couple of summits between the North and South. On the positive side, a comprehensive military agreement was signed in 2019. Again, it's a plus. We had no military provocations along the DMZ, another positive sign. Plus, the government of Moon Jae-in acted as a mediator, helping the North Koreans and Americans come together for unprecedented summits. And finally, no psychological, all the psychological kind of warfare broadcasts were stopped along the DMZ. But that's pretty much all in terms of, the achievements of the Moon's policy towards the North. On the negative side, I think we didn't see any progress really in the North-South reconciliation or cooperation. Sanctions, anti-North Korean sanctions, they're still in place. Actually, they were augmented several times. Kaesong is still closed. Mount Kungan is still closed. Exchanges, military, economic, cultural, social, whatever, they're non-existent. North Korea, and more importantly, North Korea continues to build up its WMD capabilities. They resumed IRBM tests. Now they're talking about the resumption of the ICBM tests. There was really no cooperation, even in the health sector. During the pandemic, we didn't see any vaccine swaps as expected. Moreover, President Moon lost the support of two key players, that is Russia and China, for his North Korea diplomacy at the UN Security Council. So the anti-North Korean united front has crumbled, in my opinion. So on balance, President Moon's soft-line policy on North Korea failed to deliver the expected results and significantly improve the North-South relations. Of course, it kept peace on the peninsula, together with the U.S. ally, and the situation was under control. Of course, the pandemic helped. President Trump's defeat inadvertently helped that. But we are no closer to the reunification and reconciliation of Korea today as compared to, let's say, 5 years ago. Moreover, if you look at the broader relationship, the Republic of Korea just joined the Western sanctions against Russia in its support, showing its support for the Western kind of criticism of what Russia is doing in Ukraine. And that essentially caused the rupture in the South Korean-Russian relationship with significant repercussions, long-term repercussions for the security dynamics on the peninsula. Relations with China much worsened today, and the diplomatic boycott of the Olympics by the South, as well as other players, didn't help. So, in my opinion, South Korea today, 5 years into Moon's rule, whether he liked it or not, intended or not, is less secure than it was 5 years ago. That's a comment. Now, two quick questions, and they're very simple. First, given that strategic situation, the new strategic situation which we're observing today, Ukraine, Taiwan, all these heightened risks, should the transfer of operational control be delayed? Remember, it's conditioned on three things, as you said: adequate capability, demonstrated capability, and strategic situation. So should it be delayed or not? And number two, it's, the alliance is supposed to defend South Korea in 4 domains: air, sea, land, and cyber. But as you know, North Korea is pushing very hard to advance into space, and they just made an announcement that they allegedly launched a reconnaissance satellite and what have you. Now, a question to you is, should the 5th dimension, and that is space, be added to the authority of the Combined Forces Command to defend South Korea from space as well? I mean, do you see any role for the U.S. Space Command in the future if OPCON, for example, is delayed, if the transfer of the OPCON is delayed in the future, given this strategic situation?
So lots to unpack there. Let me first talk about what you talked about at the beginning of whether South Korea is, in more danger and the situation is worse militarily than it was 5 years ago. I guess I would challenge that assertion. If you look at what South Korea has done as far as defense budgets, and the ability to be able to acquire capabilities that are needed in many different arenas, they are doing really very well along those lines. And that, there's lots of reasons they've been able to continue to increase their defense budget. But President Moon has been very consistent that he will not stand for any North Korea provocation that endangers any South Koreans, that any response or any sort of provocation will be responded to very quickly and very strongly. And he's backed that up with defense budgets that are prepared to execute that. So from the perspective of the will of the people, the will of the government to be able to respond to North Korea kinetic attacks or provocations, I still believe that is very, very strong today. And to be honest, I think that's one of the reasons we've really not seen any provocations since 2010 that are kinetic. You could talk about the landmine, you could talk about how we got closer during the Fire and Fury type of thing. But I think it's very clear to North Korea that if there's anything even like it was in November of 2010 again, the response going to North Korea is going to be tenfold. And I do believe there's some deterrent effect that's gone there. The way that President Moon, I think, has handled the desire to talk to North Korea, General Brooks, I think, has it about right. From a South Korean, from President Moon's perspective, he believes the way to move forward with North Korea is to gain trust, and then you can move down the line to get results of denuclearization and other steps to be able to get there. But trust is required first. I think that's how President Moon believes that. And that's why he's trying to do steps and has been trying to do steps to interact more with North Korea to, if you will, gain trust. Where I think we in the U.S. believe that we have looked at North Korea long enough and seen them break promises long enough that we have to have demonstrated steps first, and then we will learn to trust, and then we can move forward. And I think those two ways of dealing with North Korea, they don't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive of each other, but that's how we've kind of tried to be able to move forward along those lines. So I would challenge you that that South Korea is in more danger militarily than they were 5 years ago. I don't believe that to be the case for the reasons that I made, and just the fact that our commitment to South Korea remains very, very strong. And we've had 5 years to look at different capabilities that North Korea is doing and what they're doing, and put things in place in order to make sure that we are best prepared for any sort of attack. So now to your two questions. Should OPCON be delayed? It's an interesting question when you put it in the perspective of what should the situation on the peninsula be. I have been told, although I couldn't give any specifics, not only because I don't know them, but because they're classified, that the exact situation, the situation that needs to be in place from a, South Korea, U.S. Korea, South Korea, North Korea regional perspective is agreed to by both countries. And kind of the terms of that are agreed to within the conditions for OPCON transition to take place. Again, I don't know what they are, but both countries, I've been told, have agreed to what those conditions are. As I watch things unfold in Ukraine, and have thought about, if a South Korean general was in charge of Combined Forces Command, is that a smaller or a larger deterrent for North Korea? Does that give Kim Jong-un to say, okay, if they let a South Korean be in charge, then the U.S. must be backing down some, not as committed, otherwise they would have never done that? Or would he view it as, okay, South Korean that let the South Korean to be in charge, it must be pretty strong military over there, otherwise they probably would have, in command ability, otherwise would have never let that happen. Then you throw on top of that with, what we're seeing in Ukraine, the will of the people to defend against anything. You'd see that at, I think 100 times, that you'd see the same thing in South Korea. So I think the ability to be able to move forward and do command and control really rests more on those, conditions as far as having the capabilities and demonstrating the capabilities. You probably don't want to do OPCON transition, in the middle of a provocation. Things are real tense like they were during Fire and Fury. The middle of that is not the time to do it. But I would see, because I go back to, I do think a Republic of Korea general should be in charge of Combined Forces Command, to be responsible for the command of the country that he belongs to.
Space Force.
Space Force. Yeah, without getting into classified stuff, it's, the Combined Forces Command through the U.S. has the ability to be able to reach back to Space Command and other commands in the United States to be able to help defend Korea if we went to war. And that's been in place for a while. I'd rather just leave it at that right now as far as who's got authority to do what certain elements and everything. But that type of the ability to be able to defend and to do some operations to help, make sure that that space does not become the ally of North Korea. They've been planned. We have those capabilities. And let me just leave it at that.
Thank you.
General, thank you very much. As I predicted, I thought this hour would go by very quickly, and it certainly has. There's so much more to talk about in terms of, looking over that peninsula and, what are we actually looking at when you consider the changes that we've made in our forces, how our training proceeds, same with the ROK, and then what is going on the North Korean side, where they apparently have had serious problems just getting their planes in the air, questions like that. There's so many issues that I think as a commanding general, you've been able to kind of have a look at. But I think our mission today was to go through what this command relationship means and frankly, what it doesn't mean. And I think to some extent, there's been a lot of talk about it and a lot of smoke about it, but maybe not a lot of light shed on it. But you certainly have done that. And I think those of us who care about this relationship and believe as you do that there's just nothing more important to us in the world should go away from this meeting, I think with a really good sense that we're in pretty good shape with our ROK allies. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Jenkins for some concluding remarks. And once again, thank him and the Washington Times Foundation for this opportunity to discuss these very important issues that are even more important as we see these crises, and in particular this crisis in Ukraine unfold. So over to you, Dr. Jenkins.
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, General Sharp. What an excellent program. Ambassador DeTrani, Ambassador Mansourov, also your participation always helps us understand much more deeply how things really went under the general. And we're very grateful to you, General, for leading us to a better position over your years of service there and your continued work afterwards. We certainly will be inviting you back soon. The Washington Briefs programs are recorded, and they're also remain on our website. And it's very simple, washingtonbrief.org. You don't need any other letters to it, just washingtonbrief.org. Our programs all remain there. This is our 11th episode since we began. And Ambassador Joe, it's hard to believe it's been a year now. So our next episode which will be on April 5th, will be our 1-year anniversary. And we're getting a lot more participation from state and also the intel community, and it's really growing with Congress too. We're very grateful. This expert panel really helps us to get really down on the ground with detail and current understanding. I'm very happy to hear that you feel we're in better shape in the last 5 years than we were 5 years ago. That's wonderful. Washington Times is also supporting this program, and they do an article on every program, and that does end up in the Korea Times, Korean Herald, and Yonhap. So it's really a good communication to our allies in Korea, and this program will greatly strengthen their confidence in America at this time. So I want to thank everybody here. Also to Dr. Thomas Walsh and the Universal Peace Federation, chairman there. He also gives support for this program. We're very grateful for his co-sponsorship of this effort. And Ambassador Hill, we're looking forward to your developing future, and you certainly are needed in the area of Russia and Ukraine. So we wish the best to you and to all of our viewers. Please tune in next month, April 5th, Tuesday, first Tuesday of the month. We're here every month, and we just can't thank you all enough. General, again, best to you and your family. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.